live? Hello? Oh, is that me?
That's
Oh
you.
my God. I sound handsome.
Yeah.
If you can you sound handsome?
You can.
Nsima, definitely. Even somebody yesterday on the live stream was like, why is he using his bedroom voice?
It's not my bedroom voice. It's my voice.
That's what I said.
It's his handsome voice.
My bad. I'll talk like this the whole time, Steve.
No.
Kind of sound a little bit like Mike Tyson right there.
No, it doesn't.
Anyway, you guys saw me doing the freaking 100 days of carnivore, and trying to stick to that plan and stick to that diet. And we all know how tough it can be to stick to a plan and stick to a diet. But I was cheating the whole time.
The whole time?
The entire time.
Okay.
Dude.
Yeah, I know.
Performance enhancements?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I was using perfect keto.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Everyone heard it here first.
I shouldn't be saying this on the air, but
you shouldn't. And we're live, so there's no going back.
I know. But, using the collagen protein, just having something at night that has different taste than meat all the time is a huge relief.
Mm-hmm.
And then even, first thing in the morning, I'd look forward to throwing it in my coffee and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
I know like we recommend people get like snacks and that sort of thing out, but something like this in Nsima, like, would you say somebody can have this and not really feel guilty about it?
The collagen protein, MCTs and stuff, yeah. If I'm being real, those cookies are good, right? If you're not responsible, be careful. I'm just going to be real because I'm not the most responsible guy.
yeah, well, the same thing will happen to you with the bars and stuff that Perfect Keto makes. That would happen with like junk food. You're probably going to eat too much of it. If you can eat it responsibly, then you're in the driver's seat. You're in a good position.
That makes sense. Well, guys, for more information, you guys really got to head over to perfectketo.com/power25. At checkout, enter promo code Power Project for 25% off and free shipping on any orders of $99 or more. We use the MCT oil powder as often as possible. The nootropic is second to none. It's an amazing product. Really, everything on that website is amazing. They don't use any artificial sweeteners. It really, the absolute best way to get into a low carb or ketogenic diet is with Perfect Keto. So please head over to perfectketo.com/power25.
They even have the keto sticks that you can pee on to check to see if you're in ketosis.
And then you send it back to them and they tell you that you are.
They're like, you're off the team. You didn't make it. Yeah, don't send Perfect Keto your urine stick.
Oh, no. Anyway.
We got Eddie Hall on the podcast today.
Yeah.
Yesterday we talked to the mountain. Today we're talking to the beast.
Sheesh.
No one's talking about them right now.
No one's talking about them. Eddie Hall, world's strongest man champion, and also, the current world record holder in the deadlift with a 500 kg deadlift. And so we're going to talk to him today about some of the controversy surrounding this event that is set up for Thor, or at least it appears that way. But most of the controversy has kind of come from Eddie Hall. A lot of that has come from his side, and it'd be great to get his take on it because we have, we're not like buds with Eddie Hall. We're not like best friends with him or nothing, but from our interaction with him, he's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's just a real genuine guy. He seems very competitive, obviously, but he certainly doesn't seem like an asshole in any way. And when I saw his post about what was happening, and I saw his kind of frustration with Thor and the situation that's going on, I was kind of taken back by it because I was like, I think I know him. I think I know him well enough to, for this to be a little odd, that it was so frustrating to him. But then I thought about it more and I was like, well, this is a body of work for him. He's been lifting his whole life and he went after that 1,100-pound deadlift with everything that he had. And so, it makes some sense that he'd be frustrated that it's not going to be maybe under the same set of circumstances that he had to go through.
Yeah. And then also it's like that 1,100-pound deadlift, the amount of time like he took to prepare for it and everything that was happening that year, the competitions, etc. Again, like we couldn't have predicted COVID-19 or coronavirus, whatever you want to call it. But it's like his situation was more specific. It wasn't in his garage or wherever. He had to do it in competition with other lifters. That seems to be one of the biggest things and one of the biggest, I guess, fires for a lot of these strongmen saying this can't necessarily be an official world record. and you can understand it.
Yeah, there was a lot of comments yesterday of everyone just saying like it will break the record, but it's still going to be like a PB, as everyone across the pond says. Yeah, it'll be a gym personal best. It'll be a PR. It won't really. A lot of people said they wouldn't see it as an official world record. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't think it's gonna. To me personally, it doesn't matter. But I understand purists and people who are big fans of the sport, or again, somebody like Eddie be like, no, it's got to be done like in the right setting, a real legit setting.
I feel like Eddie's definitely going to have he's going to have more reasons as to like why this is going to be legit. Other than that, like just other things we haven't thought about, because I feel like there's a lot of factors in all of this that, I mean, we just might not know, so who knows, but
yeah, they travel in the same circles and they're in the same like circuit all the time. And yeah, maybe they get frustrated with each other. I mean, it makes sense, right? They're going to get frustrated with each other. Yeah. And, it'll be interesting, after talking to Thor and hearing some of his thoughts and, he really feels like he's going to break the record. And so I think, asking Eddie Hall, like, now it appears that Thor is going to, really be going after this, at this event. Like, do you think that he'll break it? That would be kind of an interesting, because it's not broken yet, and it is an all-time world record, and the stars have to align for that to happen. So it'd be interesting to kind of hear his thoughts on that.
I think he said he was like 60-40, right?
Yeah, in the video he made with Brian, he said it was a 60-40, 40% chance that Thor will get it, 60% chance he won't. Yeah, so I mean, we'll see.
It's kind of a good prediction because, it just depends on how you feel for the day. Like if something's off, if your training was, you're not always super accurate with your training. You try the best you can. And then sometimes you have to go look back at your training and say, I kind of probably missed it because I went too heavy, too close to the competition, or I didn't train long enough. I didn't train up to the competition enough, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Do you remember like any big precautions that you took when you were like getting ready for one of the powerlifting meets? So
one of the major things is just to not hurt yourself, but that's not a good thing to have in your head. That's a terrible thing to have in your head. Because you want to train as if everything was normal, but you kind of can't. The worst thing you can do is hurt yourself a couple days before the competition.
Hello.
Hey.
What's up, Eddie?
Hey guys, you okay?
There we go.
Yep.
We're good, man. How are you?
Yeah, good, man. I've literally just a second walked out the gym, so I'm absolutely dripping with sweat. There you go. Right, I am all go. I've got my stand here.
A lot of you've been doing a lot of body weight exercises since you've been under quarantine.
Yeah, I've been doing my body weight Pilates and all that kind of crap. Oh, no, I've got an all right home gym. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's squat, deadlift, overhead stuff. Got all the dumbbells and bands, and I'm managing quite well. So
we saw you, Luke? When we saw you at the Arnold. Yeah, that's good. That's perfect. When we saw you out the Arnold, that it was a really weird feeling there. Like the whole thing was shut down, and it's just something that we never seen before. We're not used to that kind of thing. And I think looking back at the moment, we're like, we didn't really maybe fully embrace or fully understand why it was shut down. But now looking back, now we kind of, get a better idea of what was going on there.
Now we're looking back and see what fucking idiots we were.
Yeah, it could have been very dangerous for all of us to be meeting there. Anyway, sure. You still have the all-time deadlift record, the 500 kg deadlift, and we're aware that Hapthor Bjornsson is going to be going for it coming up shortly. And we saw that you took exception to that because he's not doing it under specific circumstances. What's your vantage point on this, and why is it disturbing to you?
Well, there's a few things. I mean, let's take for one example when I attempted the world record log press in, I believe it was 2018 with a snapped ankle. And I remember I was like that close, and I mean that close to locking that log out. And I thought to myself, I could try this again in a couple of weeks. So, you know, I'm ringing the promoters up, can we do this again? And they're just like, no, like, sorry, you just have to wait your turn. We can't just set an event up just for you, just so you can break a world record. You have to wait till it's in a competition with other athletes and you have to get it done. And I was like, oh, God damn it. It's like, can't we just set a venue up and, you know, you referee it and we'll get, you know, we'll weigh the log, it'll be official. And they're like, Ed, you can't do that, mate. That's just unfair to the other athletes. And this is exactly the same scenario. Well, you know, it's horrible circumstances, of course, you know, and of course it's not Thor's fault. But there's one example where I've been told no, because it's not under competition rules, that I can't go for a world record log press, but yet Thor wants to do it. Thor has asked for this. And then, you know, WUS have provided a platform for him, you know, in his home gym, I believe, getting all his pals there, Magnus for Magnuson. And I think my main sort of discrepancy with this is, and hear me out here, World's Strongest Man 2017, Thor brought a discrepancy up there saying he was robbed and that the referees were corrupt and they took away the advantage for him to win. That same referee is now refereeing his deadlift. So how can a referee that by his words is corrupt now all of a sudden be a good referee to referee his deadlift? And that's what's pissing me off the most, is he's so hypocritical. It's like, oh, referee Magnus Magnuson's corrupt. He took away my win. He disallowed that rep on purpose. And now, fast forward 3 years later, Magnus Magnuson, my friend, come and referee my deadlift. I love you. And that's what I can't stand about it all. It's disgusting. And I'm really shocked. I mean, Magnus Magnuson, in my eyes, is an amazing referee, good friend of mine. I wouldn't mock him in the slightest. But that just takes the piss. How can Magnus Magnuson turn up to that event knowing full well that Thor has called him a corrupt referee and judge his deadlift for him, for nobody else, for Thor? And I just think it's disgusting. So there's one or two key points that I just like to sort of lay on the table straight away.
Yeah. Eddie, is there anything that Thor or just the organization or anything that would be able to do something to legitimize this lift to where you would say, okay, I will accept that this is an actual, official record attempt?
It's tough. I mean, I'm looking at obviously I've seen Thor's training videos, and even little things like the bar. You compare his bar to my bar. His bar is bending a lot more than what mine did with the 500 kilo. It looks a lot longer. It looks as though the weights leave the floor a bit later. And this is what I said in the first instance, is that it's his sponsors, Rogue, sponsoring the event. It's Rogue's equipment, Rogue's weights, Rogue's bars, Rogue's platform, Rogue's collars. And to me, it's almost as if, right, you know, imagine Rogue, and like Rogue are an amazing outfit, but if I was head of Rogue and I've got one of my athletes here who's going to give us a load of exposure, you know, they're going to give him I wouldn't say a dodgy bar, but a bar that's best suited to get this lift done. And the bar I did it on was evidently, and you can, I'm not just saying this, compare the two. Mine was a lot stiffer. The weights didn't leave the floor as late as Thor. And it's just little things like that. And this is why I say it's got to be done in competition, so other athletes can say, well, hang on a minute, that bar isn't right. And the other organizations can say, no, that isn't correct. And and I've said from day one, it just doesn't feel right. And here's a scenario for you, right? So let's rewind 4 years. Let's say we had a corona. Sorry, I don't mean to say that word. You have to bleep it out. Let's say we had a situation like this 4 years ago, and I said to the world, right, I'm going to pull 500 kilo in my gym. I'm going to get Colin Bryce up to referee it, my plates, my platform, everything else. Every single person on the planet would have said bullshit. There's no doubt in my mind. Every single person would have said bullshit. So why is it different for Thor?
Right. Now, I agree with that. That actually makes a lot of sense. And I think that, people have done this in the past, especially when it comes to powerlifting. I've competed in my own gym, and, as soon as I competed in my own gym, people were up in arms about it. And, it definitely, I had to kind of stop doing that because it was something that I recognize the pressure that I put on the people that are judging it too, because it's like, and I wasn't trying to do that, but it was just, you know, it was like, hey, this is convenient for me. This is in my own gym. This is great. And I did that, you know, a bunch of times. And then after a while I was like, I probably should stop doing that. You know, now that I'm a professional and people are kind of looking at it differently. But then I also got to a point where I was like, you know what, I don't really care what people say. I'm just going to kind of continue, you know, to do things my own way. But it is a strange thing because, you know, the circumstances that we're in right now are, you know, they're just so different. And I'm thinking like, these guys probably drummed up the idea of like, hey, this is going to be good because people will be tuning in, people will be watching. And so I think from that perspective, I think it's amazing. Do you think it's healthy for the sport in general?
100%. I think what WUS is doing is absolutely amazing. It's fantastic. It's giving a platform for people to showcase what they can do behind the scenes, and it's giving us entertainment. And I've always said I've said it all along, you know, what WUS is doing is amazing, but to call them world records and to top trump other people. I mean, there's been a few instances where I've done world records in the gym, but I couldn't face the facts of saying to the public, this is a world record because I said it is. I've weighed the plates and my mate gave me a down signal. I wouldn't in a million years dream of doing that. Not in a million years. But if people want to see me do a 230 kilo log in the gym or a 501 kilo deadlift, I'd do it for their satisfaction, for their entertainment. But to have the cheek and nerve to call it a world record is pretty disgusting. And this is a rumor I've heard that once Four has done this deadlift, he is retiring from Strongman. And so basically the guy's going to put the sport on into that Pandora's box, open up a load of doors where loads of athletes are then going to say, oh, well, I just pulled a world record in the gym. I might give me a down signal. It counts because Four did it. Four is going to open that box for the sport of strongman, fuck the sport of strongman up, and then retire, and he'll be on his way making his millions. I can guarantee you that twat is going to retire as soon as this deadlift is done. It's almost as if he wants to get one up on me because of all the feud we've had. He wants to get this one up on me before he retires, and then he's done. It's pussy talk, and he's a pussy.
Has this situation, has this kind of escalated, you to like talk outwardly about him more? Because as long as I've known you, I haven't seen you really say anything bad about anybody. Usually you just kind of like, you kind of just glaze over it, and you might mention something in passing that's like fun or funny, but I haven't really known you to try to like, down anybody else. So has this been like the boiling point where you're like, you know what, fuck it, man, I just need to let people know how I feel about this? Pretty
much, yeah. I mean, Four started this first and foremost saying I was a dishonest, unsportsmanlike person, and I was like, well, hang on a minute. Let's rewind to World's Strongest Man 2017. Who is the unsportsman person here? I think it's more than likely you. And yeah, I'm just like, sod it. It needs to come out now. What happened at World's Strongest Man 2017 needs to come out, because he had his little say. He put his dark cloud over my win, and then he's just shut up about it, and he's got away with it. How can you call a whole organization World's Strongest Man corrupt, but then yet go and win the World's Strongest Man title and make your living off the back of it? It's beyond me. How can you throw shade at a sport that made you? It's ridiculous. And he needs calling out for that. And I mean, he started off with the Magnus v. Magnusson with the refereeing on the Viking press, which was even Magnus v. Magnusson himself told Four to shut the fuck up, right? And then he goes on from that and he changes his story. He's like, oh, no. The Viking press was fine. What I mean now is that the events were handpicked for Eddie, and they took stuff out of the competition for Eddie. And let me tell you about a conversation we had at Europe's Strongest Man 2018, because I pulled Four to one side at Europe's 2018. And I said, look, buddy, he said, well done to me that day. And I said, Four, you can stick your well done up your fucking arse, because you don't mean it. I said, because you haven't apologized for what you said. And he wouldn't apologize for what he said. And we spoke about the Viking press, and he said, he admitted that Magnus v. Magnusson was right, and yeah, he shouldn't have said anything about the Viking press. But then he said that the events were handpicked for me. I said, okay then, Four. I said, I'm going to call you bluff here. if you were to pick the events, what events would you pick? What would you take out and what would you put in? He says, oh, right, okay. I would have took out the tire flip and I'd have put a yoke in. I said, okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, fine. But can I just remind you that 5 weeks before World's Strongest Man, I beat you at the car walk. So I beat you at yoke. Fucking crickets. Absolute crickets. And then he said about the drag was taken out of the tire flip. So it was meant to be a tire flip and drag for the first event. And he accused the organization of taking the drag out for my benefit. Now, the real story is the drag was such a disaster in the heats, i.e. there was 3 lanes and lane 1 always won. So there's one lane evidently easier than the other 2 lanes. They took it out for that reason. Now, imagine this. So imagine if you left the drag in and 4 got lane 3, the hardest lane. Do you think you would have cried then? I think you would have. And then it just goes on and on. What else was it he said? There was a squat and a deadlift in there put in for me. Fuck me. It's World's Strongest Man to find out who the strongest man in the world is. Do you know what I mean? It's like, let's see who is the fucking strongest. Let's see who can squat the most. Let's see who can deadlift the most. If you can't win those events, then you're evidently not the World's Strongest Man, are you? And there was all this bollocks about breaks on a plane. It can go on and on and on. They said the platforms were made to my height. We could go the other way and say if the platforms were the normal height, I could say, well, that's favoring 4. What about the little guys? He's got no argument. Everything that he's come out with and said, I've got an answer for. And it's the same old shit. He doesn't know what to say because he's full of shit. He's full of shit.
Let me ask you this, Eddie, because when we were talking to Thor yesterday, he was mentioning how he did mention the 2017 World's Strongest Man, but he was also talking about how, as far as the way they run things is concerned, he said that they don't really run things for the athletes, that they sometimes certain athletes know certain events before other athletes. Is this something that's legitimate in your opinion? Like, do you feel that they don't put the athletes first also, or do you feel that that is totally wrong and it's not legitimate?
No, I would completely agree with that. And I would say that Thor has got pals in the equipment team at World's Strongest Man. And World's Strongest Man 2018, he got the events well before anybody else. So I can agree with what Thor's just said, and that he got the events before anybody else. So I can agree with that. The events are handpicked by the TV stations, nobody else. And there's people that can back that up. And I spoke to, Colin Bryce, bless his soul, was, thrown under the bus during all this. It was all put on him. And I spoke to Colin. I was like, who picks the events? How can people say this? And it's the TV guys, CBS. And the UK TV, they pick the events for what looks good for the television. That's it. It's a voted system. They all get in a room and they say, right, what events are we doing this year? And they don't sit there and go, I know, let's make 4 win this year. Let's do this, this, and this. It's just what looks good on TV. And people saying people getting events before anybody else, that's BS. I can tell you now, before World's Strongest Man, I was training on a whippy bar, doing my squats leading into World's Strongest Man 2017. 2 weeks before, they announced it was on a bloody axle. So to say I knew the events, you can go back and check my social media. I didn't know the events. I was in the same book as everybody else. To say I got a one-up on anybody, if anything, I think Thor gets one up on everybody else. And because he's put videos out well in advance. You can check his social media. He was training Olympic barbell and press months before they announced the events, but he was training it, and the thick bastard was putting it up on his social media. So to say that people were getting the events before anybody else, yes, he's completely right. He was one of them.
What do you think something that could help change this in strongman? Because I've talked to Brian Shaw and I've talked to other athletes, and they've kind of pointed out that this is a problem. Like it's like, at least my understanding, my perspective is of like CrossFit, like they don't, they're accused of doing the same thing. Like they're accused of having like buddies in the system and stuff. But as far as I know, I don't see any foul play there at all. It seems like they have it really locked up, and they're just trying to find the fittest person. What can strongman do? Like, do you think, and would you be part of it? Like if they had a committee of maybe some retired athletes or something like that, would you be part of that? Or would you guys just be ready to kill each other every week if you had a committee?
I'd love to be a part of that, but I feel as though because of my position, And because of what Forrest stated, I couldn't be a part of that because I'd be seen to be picking events for certain athletes. So I can't have that over my head. I will refuse to pick events for World's Strongest Man if I'm ever asked. I do think that World's Strongest Man could release the events a lot earlier, but that's on them. They can do whatever they want. They're an organization. If they say they're going to announce the events 2 weeks before World's Strongest Man, that's fine because every athlete's in the same boat. So it doesn't make any advantage for anybody. I understand it's frustrating. I've been there myself. I'm there 1 month before World's Strongest Man thinking, right, they've said they're doing a squat, but are they using a stiff bar or an axle? And I'm just pulling my hair out myself. But at least I've got the satisfaction of knowing that every other athlete's in the same boat. Well, we hope.
Do you have any idea how it used to be run? Like the old strongman that you would see, and you would see professional football players, and you would see professional wrestlers. You see like Ken Patera out there, who was an Olympic athlete as well as a WWF wrestler at the time. Like, are you aware of how that stuff was run? Because that always seemed like a lot of fun. Like it seemed like they just got a mix mash of people that were super strong. And then they just did like these kind of random crazy events which seemed very dangerous, by the way. But any idea how some of that was run?
Not at all. I mean, all I know is, back in the day, this was all sort of brought to fruition by a group of men that thought, you know what, let's do a competition and find out who the world's strongest man is. One of them was Barry Frank. And then there's lots of people that have been a part of World's Strongest Man. Dougie Edmonds was one of the initial people that sort of helped formulate the World's Strongest Man. And in my opinion, yes, you're right, it was dangerous, but by God, was it entertaining. Watching people wrestle, bend bars, run with fridges, lift, pull boats up hills. Like, I miss those World's Strongest Man days. I sure do. Those were the real sort of raw entertainment. Nowadays, we're a bit more professional. Instead of having a boat that can sway left and right and make it harder for one or the other, we'll do a fair one lane, one arm over arm. We'll use calibrated sort of equipment. It's evolved, it's had to evolve. Gone are the days where, yes, it's still an entertainment sport. To watch who is the alpha, who is the strongest man on the planet. To me, that is the most entertaining thing in the world. But to do events that are unfair or people risking getting injuries, I'm glad that those days are gone, because I would have had to be a part of that and perhaps do a sumo wrestle with Brian Shaw and get squished, So the sport's evolved, and I feel like it's still evolving. It is still evolving. It's going in the right direction. And people doing world records in the gym is taking the sport back 20 years.
I remember seeing one of the World's Strongest Man competitions where the guy was pulling a trolley, and like these guys were really efficient at it. They got really good at it, and they started like basically running with the trolley, but then they couldn't stop the damn thing. Oh, so they got to the finish line. They were completely exhausted, and they would stop, and the trolley would roll them up. The trolley would roll over them. It was crazy.
I've seen that. They used to do that with the trams and buses and all. They get run over by their own buses and stuff. It's brilliant.
Mark, I think Mark mentioned this yesterday when we were talking to Thor about it. And I am curious, because you're mentioning that World's Strongest Man, it has gotten safer for the athletes. But do you think have you had any thought on what could be done to make it even safer? Because I was thinking when you said that they give the athletes 2 weeks notice before you guys know the movements, right? I guess I haven't done strongman before, but I was thinking if I was an athlete, I would like more time to prepare for some of these extreme movements, just so that my body can be somewhat used to it, and so that there's less risk of me getting injured when I have to do it. Does that seem like it would be something that would keep you guys safer, or is the element of surprise just something that is good to have?
It is. That's a very tough thing to answer. I mean, the element of surprise for the athletes is not a nice thing. Being told you've got it. I mean, this last year's World's Strongest Man, I think they gave the athletes 2 weeks notice, and they were doing a 600 kilo yoke, which is ridiculous. And I've been there and I've lifted 600 kilo yokes, and I know in my heart that it takes 6 months to train to be able to do a 600 kilo yoke, because you have to train it. You can't be plodding along doing 450, 500 kilo yokes, turn up to a comp and like, boom, there's 600. You've got to train for it. So it has got that danger of element to it. I will admit that. And yes, they could release the events a lot earlier. I think you'll find is World's Strongest Man is always a rush. It's always, right, where are we going to do it? What kit can we get? What money have we got? And end of the day, it's a TV show, you know, and they're always thinking, what is the best for the TV show? They don't necessarily, I wouldn't say they don't care about the athletes, but that's not their number one priority. Their number one priority is producing a TV show that creates tension and diversity and, you know, competitiveness. And I think, you know, I mean, it's so horrible when you see people get injured, but it also creates that suspense. I know that's a horrible thing to say, but when you've seen one man snap his Achilles off doing this yoke and you're anticipating watching the next man, yes, it's horrible to see, but I mean, for the general public, like, it's hit and miss. I don't like seeing it. I do not like seeing it, but I can see why the World's Strongest Man probably don't learn from it, because it creates, you know, we get these views and they get these amazing figures and they get sold to 90 plus countries. It's a tough decision, man. I mean, to answer the question, I think they should give 2 months notice for events for World's Strongest Man. That's how I feel. Will they do that? I hope they will. If I can have some say in that, of 100%, that's what I will suggest. But it's a TV show at the end of the day, and the problem is you've got TV producers making these decisions, not professionals. Not what I mean by that is not professionals in Strongman. You've got TV producers making the decisions, not Colin Bryce, not anybody else, not Magnus Van Magnuson, TV producers that have never lifted a weight in their life. That's the truth.
Yeah, one of the most annoying things, because like we all love watching Strongman. It's so amazing the feats that, you know, you guys are able to do. It's not live, and that's obviously a huge problem. Do you think the way the format is right now, do you think it can kind of stand on its own and be a live broadcasted event?
Yeah, I think it can be. I think that's something World's Strongest Man is missing out on. I do feel as though they could do a live stream of this, and then people would still watch it at TV at Christmas or whatever, because you watch a live stream and you can see, you know, to be honest, for me personally, I wouldn't sit there for as long as World's Strongest Man goes on. And we all know this, it goes on for over a week. I wouldn't sit there for a week and watch World's Strongest Man on the live stream. And that's me being a massive Strongman fan, obviously. I would much prefer to sit back, wait, and watch a nice, finished, polished production that's aired at Christmas on Channel 5 and watch it with the family eating a Christmas dinner. That's what I'd prefer. But for the hardcore fans wanting the live streams, you know what? Rogue do it for the Arnolds. People tune in, but I'd prefer to see a more polished sort of finished product that brings the sport up a peg in professionalism. And that's what I want. That's what I like to see.
Speaking of unfair advantages, you have a crazy unfair advantage. I heard you on Brian Rose's podcast talk about Hercules gene. What's going on with that, man? That seems like you're cheating over there. What's going on with Hercules gene?
So the Hercules gene is a real thing. It's a gene that's it's called the MSTN gene, and basically you produce more muscle mass than any other person. Now,
okay, so where do we sign up for this? How do we, you know, are you selling this, or can we get your blood or something?
So I got the stats on it. So I believe it's something like 1 in 100 people have it. So it's not that rare, but it is to the point where out of those 1 in 100 people, how many of those 1 in 100 people are going to get into strength sports is probably, you know, very low, because only 5% of people train in the first place. And how many percent of that 5% do strength sports? So it's a very, very small margin. But what you find is people that do strength sports do a lot. I think it's 1 in 5 have the MSTN variant or some variant of it. So, and that's because these guys are big, they're strong. And of course, they're thinking, hey, I've got a bit of a talent here. I'll get into the strength sports. So the percentage of people doing strength sports is a lot higher of the people that have the MSTN gene. So you'll probably look around, you'll see some athletes like myself that you'll look at and be like, how can they hold that much muscle mass so effortlessly? And that's the reason. You know, there's a lot of these gene variants. I believe people like Thor has got it. I believe Brian Shaw has got it. Because there's no way you can hold this much muscle mass on a normal skeletal frame unless you've got some sort of genetic advantage. And that's the truth.
What is the biggest, what is the most you ever weighed before?
At my peak, I think it was just shy before World's Strongest Man 2017. I was 196 kilos. So, and my peak was 433 pounds.
Damn. Wow, that's massive, especially with your height. What are you, 6'2" or something, right? 6'3"?
I'm 6'2.5". I always say I'm 6'3". But I hate being that guy. It's like, how tall are you? Well, I'm 6'2.5". You just sound like a dick. So 6'3". It's easier to say.
What's a lift that you are like, even from yourself, like, I'm sure the 1,100 pound thing was, something that you played out in your head a lot, the 500 kilo deadlift. And it was a culmination. It was a body of work, but there's probably some lifts in the gym that you've done before where even yourself, you probably think that was pretty badass. What do you think the strongest thing that you ever did was?
There's been some ridiculous things. I would say, and this might not relate to a lot of people, but there was a hack squat in my gym where people could get, even strong guys could only sort of hack squat 2-3 plates aside. And I ended up getting 700 kilos on this hack squat. And this is how I dislocated my hip. And I would do that for reps, like 10 reps at a time. And I'd get off and my whole back from the top of my neck right down to my calves would just be swollen and on fire. And my training partner was a strong guy, couldn't even do half. And he was like, near a sort of he competed at Britain's Strongest Man, so he's by no means an amateur. And that to me, like stuff like that, it was just like you step back and you just look at the amount of weight and you're like, Jesus Christ. And the same with the leg press, really. I was leg pressing like 1,100 kilos for sets of 10. And you step back and you're like, and you can see the machine bending, and you've got bars going through it, adding more weights on.
1,100 kilos? Wait, 1,100 kilos?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that's the best I've ever done on a leg press is 1,100 kilos. And I tell you now, it nearly broke my bloody back. It just like the sheer weight coming down on your hips and knees. And afterwards, you literally cannot walk for about 3 days. It is horrendous.
How does your body hold up under, weights like that? Like, did you use a lot of recovery methods, or is this just like a long progression for it? I mean, how do you get 1,100 kilos? Like, I'm just trying to think, in some logical terms of like, you lift and you're trying for a 600 pound squat, and then you do a 600 pound squat, and then you're like, I could probably do 625, and maybe a couple months later you do 625. But these numbers are crazy. How do you think your ligaments and tendons hold up, or did they?
I think that, obviously, the standard nutrition and whatever else, and good sleep. But I think where I separated from the rest was my recovery. Every single day I would do an hour hot and cold treatment. So I'd do in a sauna and an ice bath for an hour. I would stretch every single day for an hour. I would do physiotherapy every single day for an hour. Shockwave treatment, chirotherapy. I had a chiro chamber. I had a hyperbaric chamber. And do you know what a hyperbaric chamber is? I think that's like the ultimate one I did.
Yeah, hyperbaric chamber. It simulates being like at high altitude. But can you explain maybe what that did for you?
Yeah. So, there's different. So there's the chambers that you sleep in that like deprive the oxygen. This is the opposite. So a hyperbaric chamber is where a chamber you climb into and you pressurize it to 2 atmospheric pressures. So I pressurized it to 28 PSI. So envision the same pressures. It's like the same as being in. So imagine put yourself inside a tractor tire and then blow it up to 30 PSI. Whilst you're inside that chamber, you breathe pure oxygen. So I had 8 oxygen machines feeding into an oxygen pipe in there. And what the pressures do is force the oxygen into your little capillaries, into the areas it wouldn't normally get to. To explain it so people understand, a hyperbaric chamber is used that people that have had a stroke and parts of the brain have died. So what it'll do is the pressures will force the oxygen into those little parts of the brain and bring it back to life. And so imagine if that's doing that for such a tiny small muscle in the brain. Think about what it's doing to the big ones in your arms, your legs, and everything else. And I did that. The basic theory is for every hour you do in the hyperbaric chamber is the same as having 12 hours recovery outside. So if I'm doing an hour in the hyperbaric chamber every single day, I was getting another 3.5 days recovery on any other athlete. And I actually got this from Brian Shaw, because Brian Shaw put it on his Instagram. I was like, I'll look into this. I went and bought one. I got one in my home. So, and then you see people like Ford doing it. It's definitely something that's worth trying.
I wonder, is that maybe in some weird way working a little bit like a sleep apnea machine?
No, not at all, because it's completely different pressures. What sleep apnea machine is probably one of the best things you can do for recovery as well, because when you get big, I bet someone like yourself even probably maybe even suffers with it, and you may or not have one. But just getting like lack of oxygen when you're sleeping is a huge one. So sleep apnea machine was probably one of the best things I did as well.
Can you explain what it feels like to do the hot and cold therapy? Like you get done with a really hard training session and you just have all that weight of what you lifted for the day it's just sitting in your body, and it just, you know, you feel it and you're kind of wearing it. And when you're home and you go to get up off the couch, you're getting up like a bear and making lots of noise, rah, you know, and it takes you 10 minutes to walk to the kitchen. What does it feel like after you've done the hot and cold therapy for an hour?
It feels amazing. How I understand the hot and cold therapy is when you get into the hot, let's say you get into the cold, sorry, and it squeezes the muscles, it squeezes all that lactic acid out, all those bad, dirty blood nutrients that have been used up and are just sitting there dormant, you know, toxicating your system. It squeezes all that out. And then when you warm up in the sauna, it's putting fresh blood, fresh nutrients back into the muscle. So it's just helping shift everything, puts it all into the liver and kidneys and dumps it all out. So whilst I'm doing the hot cold, I will probably drink 3 liters of mineral water, just smashing that in with electrolytes. And that's just flushing everything out. And then you get out after and you feel like $1,000,000. There's no way to describe that feeling of once you've done your workout, you do your hot cold. I'm going to go do it in a minute, actually, once I've had my dinner and done here. The euphoria you get of a hot cold treatment is, can't explain it. It's almost like cocaine. So I've heard.
I like you put that in there at the end. You know, also what I've noticed about some hot and cold therapy is it almost erases the workout. I mean, not completely, like it doesn't feel like it completely erased the workout, but for the moment when you're done, you feel trained. You feel like you didn't work out for like 2 days.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's what you need. You need to be able to, you know, you train legs on a Monday and you've got your deadlift on Thursday. I've always said this is when you do a maximal lift, like, you know, your super heavy squats and deadlifts, your body takes 10 days to recover, no matter what. It doesn't matter how young you are, whatever, it takes 10 days to recover. It's down to you as an athlete to reduce that 10 days. And it could be as simple as having an hour's physiotherapy will take a day off. Doing the hot cold treatment will take a day off. Eating right, doing your hyperbaric chamber, that'll take another couple of days off. Before you know it, you're back down to that seven-day margin, which means you can then come in every week, every 7 days, and absolutely smash that body part. So that was my sort of theory and thinking behind it is get that 10 days down to 7 days, and then every week you just keep coming back in and destroying yourself.
I'm curious right now because you're super strong still, like obviously. And with the amount of strength that you have, there are a lot of, I think I saw you, or I saw a video of you like just breaking a snatch, not a snatch world record, but there was this CrossFit event that you ended up breaking a world record or something like that.
Yeah, in competition.
So exactly. I feel like you have the capacity to do that with other stuff right now anyway. Is there anything that you kind of have your eye on? I kind of want to attempt and break that and that and that. Anything like that coming up?
Not really, man. I mean, that CrossFit thing I was doing an appearance for a CrossFit entity, you know, going down and meeting and greeting and everything. And the guy said, do you fancy having a go at some CrossFit? And I said, okay, what can I do? And he said, well, there's a world record called Grace or Isabel, one or the other. And you've got to do 61 kilo, touch the floor, lock it out above your head as fast as you can, 30 reps. And the quickest time, I think, was 55 seconds. So I did one training session on it. I did 1 minute 15 and then turned up at this event, got psyched up and did it in 50.9 seconds. So I broke the world record by nearly 5 seconds, which is, I don't know how I did that, but it was fun. That's all I can say. It was fun. And it was just like somebody just put a challenge to me and I did it. And that's the kind of thing I like doing. There's an instance a few months back, a gymnast said, I bet you can't do a backflip. So I'm like, right, I'm fucking coming up there now. Let's do a backflip. And I did that on YouTube. I just enjoy these things. I like setting the standard. Of course, there are things I'd love to do. I've got the Ski Urge 100-meter world record. There's the 100-meter row world record, I think, which you guys did with Brian Shaw. So, there's quite a few things that I just fancy having a dive at just for the shits and giggles, really. No other motive. I'm just enjoying life. I'm retired. I've got loads of businesses and, everything's going great. And I just enjoy myself and I don't take anything seriously. I just get on with things. If people set a challenge for me, I say yes or no. If it's something that I feel like I can do or have fun doing, I'll do it.
When we talked to you at the Arnold, it sounded like you have a bunch of things that are about to come to fruition. Are you able to talk about any of those things? I remember you had a lot of projects that you were super excited about, but you weren't able to really comment too much on them.
Yeah, still really that case. I think one of the biggest things is I've signed and become business partners with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm bringing the Arnold Classic to the UK in 2021. All being well with what's going on. But that is, one of the biggest projects that I've got going on right now.
Say that again. You're business partners with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Fucking congratulations, dude. That is like the coolest thing I've ever heard. That's amazing.
Honestly, that's something like that, like winning the world's strongest man, doing the half ton, but to be business partners with a man that I literally at 5 years old sat there with my jaw on the floor watching the Terminator, to now being, business partners with him it's a life dream come true. It really is. You couldn't think of anything better, really.
Awesome, man. Hey, thank you so much for your time. I don't want to take up any more of your time today. Are you, do you think Thor is going to be able to actually hit this lift? Because, he's excited about it. And I know a lot of people are excited and they see the lift that he did on Instagram, but, it's still many kilos away from the lift that you did.
It's a tough one. It's really hard to gauge these things. I always gauge what people are going to lift by how fast they pull things. I know people are saying, well, Thor pulls slow. That really, honestly, that doesn't wash with me. The only person that pulls slow and always sort of commits is Big Z. I've never seen anyone perform like he ever did. He could pull any weight the same speed he pulled 100 kilo. I'll send you a few videos that you can perhaps put to this clip of comparisons, but there's some mad fan of mine that keeps sending me clips, and he compared my 500 kilo deadlift with his 470, and he pulled it a split second faster than me, and I mean a split second. I'll send you the clip. And then there's another clip I thought that was really interesting, was at World's Strongest Man 2017, and after 10 events in the final, I pulled 472.5 kilos. So it's 2.5 kilos more than 4 on a stiff bar. So it was like, had no flex whatsoever. And I pulled it as fast as 4 pulled that 470. So, I mean, if you compare the 500 and the 470, if everyone's saying he's going to pull the 500, then by that means, if you compare the 500 and the 470, that means that I potentially could have done 530. And that's how I see it. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I could have done more. We all know I could have done more. We all know that. It's what I left on the table. I could have come back and done 501, 502, 503, kept fucking going. Who gives a shit? Nobody. I didn't even give a shit. I broke the 500 kilo deadlift, and that's where I wanted to leave it. I didn't want to take it any further. And I set that record to be beaten. I believe Thor can beat this record, but do it in a fucking competition. Be a real man.
On May 2nd, will Eddie Hall be watching ESPN, watching Thor attempt to break the record?
Nah, I'll catch up after. But I'm not going to sit there and like watch this guy, and everyone's like thinks I'm dead wound up about this. I couldn't really give a fuck. I really couldn't. I'm not losing sleep about it. I was the first man to deadlift half a ton. And I've always said this, I set that standard for that reason, for everyone else to chase. And it's took 4 years, let's be honest with ourselves, 4 years for someone to even be talking about it then again and be close. And I can take some satisfaction out of that. I did that pull when I was 28. Imagine if I had carried on with the strongman and kept going and going and going. I honestly honestly, hand on heart, believe if I put my mind and soul to it and actually cared, I could have gone on and pulled 550 kilos. So for a man to come and pull 501 and say he's going to pull 520, good for him. Good for him. Go get it done. But when he's done it in his home gym and with all his pals and everything else, with all his yes men around him wanking him off, why don't you go to a proper competition and get it done properly? You know what I mean? Just for me, if there was any incline of a black cloud over my 500 kilo deadlift, I wouldn't do it. If somebody said it's not right, this isn't right, it doesn't feel right, and believe me, there are a big margin of people that think the same as me, I wouldn't do it. Why would you do a supposed world record that's got that black cloud over it? And people are saying I'm being sour and whatever else. Thor was going to do this deadlift in Bahrain. I didn't have a single problem with that because it was in a competition. Not a single problem. I was willing. I was like, fucking great. Let's go. Let's watch. Let's see what the human body is capable of. Can Thor pull 501 in a competition? But it's like I said with the log press, I did the 500 kilo in a competition. What could I have done at my own time, at my leisure, with my lead up in my gym? Joking apart, going to, I know it was done in my home country, but I had to drive 3 hours in heavy traffic on a Friday afternoon to get to Leeds. I have to go to a hotel, feed myself, get up early, do my physio, travel to the venue. I've got to start lifting when they say, not when I say, and yes, you know what? When you get to the heavyweights, yes, they relax and they say, Ed, when you're ready, come and pull the 500. But I've still got Colin and Darren saying to me, Ed, we've still got 4 events to go. Will you hurry the fuck up? I've still got that going on in the background. So to say, to do it at your own leisure just doesn't feel right. It gives him a huge, huge advantage, plus all the kit and everything else. And that's what I've said from day one. It just doesn't feel right. And if it doesn't feel right, then it isn't right.
What about some of these young powerlifting kids that are nailing these 900 and 1,000 pound sumo deadlifts? You think any of these guys have a shot at doing 1,100 and potentially even maybe more? I mean, these guys aren't that heavy. You got guys like Kaylor Willem and Jamal. I don't know his last name, but a couple of lifters like that. I mean, really just pushing the envelope. Do you think those guys have a chance at hitting some of those bigger weights?
Yeah, 100%. Don't talk to me about sumo. That's cheating, man. We all know that. Yeah.
You guys aren't allowed to do sumo, right?
No. It is. I actually find sumo a lot harder. But for some people, for some of their body mechanics and whatever else, I think the smaller guys, it does suit them a lot better. So, it's all about the center of gravity and all that. Anyway, we're not going to get into that. But yeah, I believe there are people that are destined to pull more than 500 kilos. There's a guy from the UK, actually, Luke Richardson. Have you heard of him?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's only 23 and he's pulling like 420 kilo deadlift. And, I look back at where I was when I was that age and he's well ahead of me. So someone like him can come up, give him 3-4 years. Someone like him could come and break the 500 kilo deadlift. And I'd love him to. I'd be supportive. If he wants to get on the phone and talk about programming and techniques, 100%, I will help the guy out. But for a guy that respects me, if a guy doesn't respect me, then I'm not going to respect them. Exactly like, the World's Strongest Man 2017. If you don't respect that win, I'm not going to respect you or anything you'll ever do.
I think you should live stream you reffing the lift that Thor does, and just be like,
it just be before he's even left the floor, no lift.
He's got a red light walking on stage.
Yeah.
Hey, man, thanks.
I'm curious on that. I don't know the full ins and outs, but I believe Big Z's repping the competition over a video. Is that right as well?
Oh wow. Oh yeah. I don't know. I haven't heard that.
Yeah. And again, it's just like what someone reffing the lift from halfway around the world.
Yeah, talking about internet judges, right?
with a 2-second delay, and it just seems nuts to me. But whatever. He's got Magnus Magnuson there, who he obviously trusts 100% and is not a corrupt referee by his words.
Have a great rest of your day. Is there anything you want to plug in signing off here?
No, just that Thor's a prick. I'll just leave it at that.
What is the, you know, in America, you know, twat doesn't quite translate over quite as well. So what is that word referring to?
What, a twat?
I'm just kidding. I just love when you say it. That's the main thing.
Fucking twat.
All right, Eddie, thanks again, man. We really appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
No, thanks, guys. It's good to vent. Big love. Take care.
Take care.
Man, yo, again, I'll say this again, because on our last podcast with Eddie, the thing that he was saying was that not a lot of people believed he could do 500 kilos, right? Even when he did like really high weights leading up to 500 kilos, still not a lot of people thought that he'd actually be able to do 500 kilos. The main reason people think that, oh, he's there. Oh, it was live.
That's the live stream. Sorry.
The main reason people think that Thor can do this is because Eddie did it. So people cannot forget that. You know, it's because of Eddie that any of this is possible.
Yeah, you said it on the previous podcast. He paved the way. So it doesn't matter what you think, who was stronger, who was not. He's still, you know, he was the first one and he paved the way. He made it possible. The impossible is now possible.
I want to see these guys go at it.
Oh my God, shots fired.
You know, like a boxing match or something. You know, we gotta.
I'd imagine Thor's got the reach. Mm-hmm. He's gonna be punching down.
Honestly, though, like, you know how these YouTubers have been like KSI and Logan Paul, they did those generated more revenue and more views than actual pro boxing matches. Imagine if in a few years there was a Thor or an Eddie Hall versus Thor boxing match. I'm just saying that would be one of the biggest boxing.
If Butterbean is still alive, he would definitely be like one of the judges.
It'd be or if they did the old school sumo wrestling match that they used to do. That was amazing. Yeah, why don't they still do that?
It.
Yeah, they would have the strongman athletes, you know, wear the diaper and everything that the sumo wrestlers would wear, and like Bill Kazmaier and stuff. He would just kill people on it.
We're being freaking deprived. Eddie Hall in a diaper.
I know. They need to do that with CrossFit, I think, at some point. Have everybody get into a sumo wrestling match. Yeah. But man, yeah, he seems fired up about it.
Yeah, man. I mean, can you blame him for being so damn passionate about it? On the previous podcast that we had him on, he knew, like, as a young kid, like, that's what I'm going to do. And he devoted his entire life, and then the huge build up to 500. And then to see it happen this way, I can definitely understand where he's coming from.
Yeah. After talking to him, it makes a lot more sense. Right.
Yes,
I think before I was like, when I saw his post, I was kind of like, oh, that sucks. He's got this feud with Thor, but separately, he just thinks this is crap. Mm-hmm. And that's his opinion, and he's entitled to that. And there's a lot of other people that agree with him.
Yeah, it definitely does suck. I don't like that they're going back and forth.
Yeah, right.
I understand it brings a lot of eyes to the sport, especially right now. But man, both those dudes are freaking cool. Like this, it does suck. Hopefully, like they'll have like a Nas and Jay-Z reunion at the end of all this and be like, all right, let's go have a
I don't know if there's any coming back from the word twat.
No, I really don't. Yo, but I'm curious about both of your opinions on this. Just like, you know, I personally think that Thor should do it. And if he does get it, I do think that, I mean, it's going to get a lot of eyes, but I think it should be unofficial, because it's like everybody else who's tried to break these records had to do it in competition. I think that is a very valid point. And it'll still be like, if he does get it, okay, he did 501, but it should be unofficial. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that he should maybe even, he should just make, like, I think it would just take all that negativity away.
Yeah.
You know, and he doesn't really have necessarily, it's not like he completely like made it up, but he probably did ask for it to happen, and then it happened. And I think, you know, in Eddie's case, he asked for something like that to happen and he wouldn't let it happen. But at the same time, you know, why was it okay for Eddie to even think that way if he's got a problem with this now too, right? Like he was thinking like, oh, let's just set something up. Mm-hmm. And then maybe because he couldn't do it is like his biggest gripe. But I think that there's got to be standards. There's got to be rules. You can't just haphazardly, be breaking records. I understand that they're going to weigh the weights. I get it. But who else in strongman? It's an abuse of power, right? That's what it is. The Me Too movement and things like that are just, it's abusing power. There's some women that, in some of the cases with like Matt Lauer or something like that, people are like, oh, it's consensual, but he still abused his power. And there was many people that it wasn't consensual, and that they just were not in a good position. They just weren't in a good spot. And I know that's not the same thing, but you can see how it correlates, where you're taking your power and you're just utilizing it to your advantage, and you're not really concerned about what else, like what are the implications, like what does it do to everybody else. And in this case, I think it's relatively positive. There's no one being like physically harmed. There's no one being like hurt in any way. And it's just probably drawing more attention to strongman. But where does it leave strongman? And I liked what he said about like, he's like opening up Pandora's box, and then he's like fucking splitting. And I understand. Yeah. Cause where does that leave the rest of us? Where does that leave strongman? Where does that leave Olympic lifting? Where does that leave powerlifting? Olympic lifting, I can't see how it could happen in Olympic lifting, but it could certainly happen in powerlifting. Olympic lifting is well run, and they wouldn't tolerate that shit.
Yeah, I hope that's definitely not the case where he dips out after this. But I think I don't think it's too far-fetched to see him break the record and then also be like, I don't really care about the record. I will do this in the future once this whole coronavirus thing is over and done with. Because yesterday he just kept talking about like, I don't care about personal records. I care about championships. I'm doing this for myself. I don't care about anyone else's opinions or anything. I'm doing this for me. So I think if he, once he breaks it, the interview and whatever, he can say something along those lines. And then also like, I'm not done. Like, I'm going to do this at a like sanctioned event, whatever, he wants to, however he wants to phrase it. And I think that will at least, he can be like, this is what you got right now for this time, but don't worry. I'm coming back and I'm going to break my own record at a competition, and I think that might be received a little bit better, kind of like just smoothing it out a little bit, not necessarily making it perfect, but I think that could help.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely what Eddie said, it's like, when you think about Thor potentially breaking this, he mentioned the rogue plates, the bar doesn't have as other bar has more whip, etc. Right? Even having that thought in your head, right? There is a black cloud now, right? And I don't think that, especially looking into the future, let's say he does break it. Let's say that it is an official world record. Now it makes me think, okay, so what if there's another strongman that starts to come up that has really good sponsors? Let's say they're not Rogue and they give him his equipment. They make him a special bar, but no one knows it's just a little bit special for him. It's very possible if this ends up being able to be something that people can do. It does really open up a lot of can of worms for the future. And I can definitely understand why now it's not the best idea to be official.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of unofficial world records, 11,000 kilos is 24,250 pounds.
Jesus Christ. He leg pressed that. What the hell?
What does that even look like?
He did 700 kilos. Yeah. How long does that take to load? How many plates is that?
Is there is there even enough plates on the planet to do like, holy shit?
Yeah,
how do you have that much weight?
Yeah, did he do it like at Ivanko headquarters or something where they're cranking out plates? He had to get plates from the assembly line.
One thing I was laughing at, to be perfectly honest, anybody who's in the live chat right now will know what the hyperbolic time chamber was. Either of you guys know what the hyperbolic time chamber is?
Yeah, his hyperbaric chamber. Yeah.
Well, there's the hyperbaric chamber, and then there's the hyperbolic time chamber from Dragon Ball Z. So it has a very similar effect. Goku and Gohan would go in, and then after about a day, they would come back, but they've gained the strength of a year. And it's so funny because the hyperbaric time chamber allows you to recover faster and improve faster. Sorry, just the DBZ fan in me came out.
They probably got it from that,
Probably. It was just like, I was just like, oh my God, this is so perfect.
I gotta watch that thing. If I call it a cartoon, I would get like slayed, right? Like, yeah. See,
fuck
okay.
you. It's not
I'm
a
just
cartoon.
saying,
That's life.
If it's drawn with colors. I just think I'm an American.
Don't they like take steroids in that show, right?
No,
Don't they get all jacked?
Well, don't get too
Senzu beans.
defensive.
What does he take?
Okay, so he takes his senzu bean, and his senzu bean allows him, after a rough battle, to just recover quickly and get
Trenzu bean.
stronger.
Are they a Scheduled 3 drug for no reason?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Man.
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. I was a little taken back at how many shots he was taking at Thor. I was just like, oh shit.
He has no chill.
No, that's amazing.
I think he's
Fuck.
super frustrated with him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like a therapy session a little bit. In the beginning, I think when he first started talking, it seemed kind of petty. But then I understood as he talked further, because he kept kind of referencing these different kind of like in strongman type situations that happen, and I'm just kind of thinking, well, that's this situation or that situation, and it's just it's a sport, right? It's strongman strongman and powerlifting. They're not great. They're not well run. They're just not. They're fun, and I'm a huge fan. And I'm not saying that I could run any of it better than anybody else, but they're just very poorly run. Yeah. They're not organized. There's not really like, they call stuff an organization for a reason. Like there's the NFL, right? And it's an organization, and it's organized in a fashion that you pretty much know the rules. In general, most of the rules. The players know how they're supposed to act. They have a players association. They have retired athletes that get to vote on different things. If the athletes have a real problem with the way they're treated, they can communicate that. In these other sports, I don't really see there's not enough of that. The only thing that we have in powerlifting that's at least organized in any fashion is like the IPF, USAPL. And everybody gets all pissed about that because it's like more strict, but it's and you're still going to have corruption, and you're still going to have people's bias, and that all those things are always going to be a factor. But shit, man, at least they're trying. At least they a lot of times when you go to the main competitions and stuff, you'll see the referees in suits and ties and stuff. I mean, that's an organization. That's like, oh shit, why is the guy got to be dressed up? Well, because he's an official. He looks official, right? Like that's the judge. That's the guy who's going to be watching your lift. He takes his time to put his clothes on so he looks proper, and you know what I mean? It's like it's a whole thing. It's a whole setup, right?
Yeah, the fact that there's like no like governing body, right? There's no lifters association,
right?
Which I think all sports, if they want to be legit, they should implement something like that. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Brian Shaw would be the perfect one for strongman. It's like, well, hell yeah, he would be. But like, there's nobody that's out there right now that's going to take that first step. Like Dana White says, like, yeah, you guys can have a fighters association. I would never stop that. Do it. I'm not going to do it for you. And then what happens? Nobody wants to, bite the hand that feeds. Mm-hmm. So it puts people in a weird position. But I think, yeah, there needs to be like almost like a union type of thing, because letting TV producers decide the events is comical.
And I think with the NFL, I think sometimes some of these big organizations, they have had to have a players association. They've been sued too many times, and then even just having like the government nipping at your heels for every little thing that you do, because you make so much money, hitting you with taxes. And a lot of players have sued the NFL for concussions and for injuries and for all kinds of different things. And so after a while, it's like, oh, you know what? It makes sense for us to like actually be more organized, so we don't have to deal with all this like bullshit. There's a way for it to be dealt with, right? And that's what some of these other sports probably need, especially strongman. I've heard too many times from too many people that even the world's strongest man, that different people are hearing about events like that's all getting leaked somehow. And yeah, why isn't it just the day that they decide it? Why don't they just put it out, and that way they don't have to worry about anything leaking out anywhere. It's there.
Yeah, and it just leads to people like, okay, maybe Eddie got the events before me because he won. It's like he didn't. But it leaves that door open to be like, okay, well, so and so was training, like he was saying, Thor was training this before,
Putting it on his Instagram.
Yeah.
maybe he he knew. And it's like, oh, fuck, dude, like I whether they did or they didn't, I don't know, but you can stop all that by saying, hey guys, this is what we're doing 2 months in advance, like Eddie said. Go kick it. I mean, if they want an amazing show
And high performing athletes.
why wouldn't they give the athletes enough like adequate time to train for it to be like, holy fuck, like that guy lifted how much? Like what is like just inhumane strength? You know what I mean?
in a sick, twisted way, bro? I think
Superhuman, not inhumane.
Yeah. In a sick, twisted way, though, like when he mentioned the TV producers thing, he mentioned the suspense aspect. I really think that in some random way, some things are set up for like, ooh, there's gonna be a little bit of blood here. There's gonna be a little bit of injury. Like that just fucking sucks because as an athlete, like the last thing you want to see is another athlete get hurt.
Oh yeah.
I feel like sometimes when people watch these things and they see that, yeah, it is a little exciting, I guess, for some viewers, but it's just that that's like seeing somebody's career potentially end.
Yeah,
That's rough.
it's just like that bare knuckle boxing. They're not doing it. Well, I mean, they might be doing it because they want to see like a good fight, but really, why are people watching? Because they want to see blood. And it gets ratings, which fucking sucks. If you're going to implement something that same ideology in Strongman.
Yeah, with Strongman, people being made aware of the events is a huge, huge thing. Because, like he said, what was it? Was it an 800 kilo or 600 kilo? Oh my God! Like if you knew about that and you could even just train a little bit for it, it would make such a huge difference. I do like the element of surprise, but then just have it be a surprise for everybody. Like, nobody knows what's coming. But then again, you'd have to make the stuff lighter. And I know that it's Strongman, and so no one wants to really make it lighter. But I think if you made the weights lighter, then you can have the athletes be healthier. They don't have to be. I mean, these guys are really at risk, and I worry that they're risking their lives. I mean, they're doing it themselves. They're not forced to do it by any means, but it's just they get addicted to it, and they want to just be bigger. They want to be stronger, so they don't care. They're gonna like, all right, I gotta weigh 450. I'm gonna weigh 450. He said he weighed 430.
Yeah,
that's crazy. 6'2.5", 430.
and what Thor's maybe 6'7", 450 something.
I think he's 6'9".
6'9". That means Eddie, like just by height, was just holding more muscle in a tighter frame,
way rounder.
Yeah, he's a fucking huge guy. I mean, he's absolutely massive. Some of those weights that he throws around the gym are crazy. Everything he does is heavy too. I don't know how much training you guys seen him do, but it's not like, oh, there's like this Instagram clip of him doing this lift, but everything's crazy. When, just even seeing him like squat, like a lot of strongman guys squat, but oftentimes you see them squat and they squat 4 plates, 5 plates, and they're definitely capable of doing more. And they move those weights, just kind of like in a reasonable way, but not him, not Sadrunas Savickas, not some of these real freaks. Sadrunas Savickas, I mean, routinely is squatting 6 plates for like 10 reps, smooth, clean, crisp, kind of like a bodybuilder / Olympic lifter, but not like an Olympic lifter because he's not doing explosively. He's not like trying to smash the weight. He's just like lifting it, and you're like, this is fucking crazy. We definitely need to have him on the show. We've heard so many people talking about how he's the GOAT.
Yeah. I've seen him like those videos where I've seen him squat. It's crazy how he moves with such a big body. If it reminds me of anyone, it's like Martin Leach's. It reminds me of how he squats and how he moves, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's great. It's some crazy shit.
We'll get him and then Ed Cohn. Just have a couple of goats.
Yeah, some of the strongest people ever, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, that was another fun podcast. We had the Mountain on yesterday, and then we got to hear Eddie Hall's kind of rebuttal, and then hopefully we can, I'm sure there'll be more shit that swirls up, after this happens, if it is indeed being like judged via the internet and stuff like that.
Oh my God, I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, that sounded weird.
Yeah, I mean, camera angles. So many variables could happen with that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, that shouldn't.
That can't happen.
Somehow they got to get out. Like they have to have judges there. That wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have somebody.
Well,
Like-
Magnus is going to be there.
Yeah, you have to have someone physically there. Yeah. I don't know. You guys that are listening to this, let us know how you feel. We're gonna put up a bunch of posts about it. We'll put some stuff up on our Power Project Instagram and stuff like that. So let us know your thoughts on it. We're kind of like 50-50. Like we think it's awesome, but I think we all agree that we really don't necessarily think it should be a world record. I think that's probably where we sit.
Yeah,
and ultimately, who cares? Because it's the perception, right? People are going to just know that it's the world record, and they don't really care that there's like a plaque or a fucking thing etched in stone somewhere.
Yeah, you might get a printed out certificate of accomplishment or whatever.
Yeah, it was interesting that Eddie Hall felt like Thor needed to one up him. That was really interesting.
And the thing about retiring afterwards, though, too, it's like, I don't. He said he was going to do 520 and 530. Like,
yeah, he didn't seem like he had any. He didn't seem like he had any plans to retire. But,
yeah,
but maybe he knows. Maybe he knows something we don't know.
Maybe we'll see. Yeah.
Maybe the people that put out the events told him
that
Thor was going to retire.
Yeah,
because they seem to know everything beforehand.
That's they.
We figured out who they are.
Is.
They is.
Who they is.
Who they be.
Our conspiracy theories continue.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, take us on out of here, buddy.
Thank you, everybody, for checking out another live stream. Like I said on the previous one, we do stuff like this all the damn time. Normally, we're in a studio in West Sacramento. Today, we are in Bodega Bay, California. Like I said, we have the top guests that you guys can ever imagine in all walks of life, all fields. So if you guys are catching us live for the first time, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, because like I said, we do this all the damn time. We will be posting out a ton of content from yesterday's episode, today's episode, whatever we could find, all at Mark Bell's Power Project. That's on Instagram at Mark Bell's Power Project, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. Thank you, everybody that's been rating and reviewing the podcast on iTunes. It helps us out a ton. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook. We're even on Twitch, although it's not too active, but we're all over the damn place. You guys can't really avoid us at this point. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. If I was Nsima Inyang, where would I be?
And Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Yin Yang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark.
We got in some really good training yesterday. Thanks to my boy Nsima over here for writing up a workout for us. We hit the stairs in the morning. We did 20 sets of that. And then we did a bunch of push-ups in between. And then we went on a big ass walk after that. I think we walked for a good 4 miles or so, hitting up the hills here in Bodega Bay. And a few hours later, we ended up with a really good workout in the garage. We did burpees and jump rope and lateral raises and what was the
thrusters and med ball slams.
There you go, thrusters and med ball smashers. I love that Eddie Hall used the word squished. He said that if he was to fight Brian Shaw in a sumo wrestling match, that he would get squished. It just gave me a really cool visual of, like, the cartoon when the bigger guy pounds the little guy on the head and turns him into like a little pancake or whatever. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, we had an amazing workout, shaking off the cobwebs from that one, and we'll get in another workout hopefully before you guys head on back to Sacramento. I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch y'all later. Bye.